We're talking to Robert Moorehead from, is it Atlanta, Georgia, where you're from?
I'm actually in Roswell, Georgia, yes.
Okay. And Robert, your business, your company, BackPocket Mobile, is what interests us today. We want to talk a bit about and talk about reinventing America, reinventing the U.S., reinventing us, reinventing ourselves. And the constant struggle that's going on day to day is kind of intensified a bit in the last couple of years with economic turns. How long ago was it when you started this business?
I started BackPocket Mobile back in 2007, primarily when the introduction of the App Store was announced, as well as seeing an infrastructure change and a lot more applications going mobile. So that was primarily my reason for getting involved.
You finding new uses still every day for the platform, the iOS?
Yeah, I would say that, it's interesting. I think as more people delve into it and as iOS becomes much more powerful in its functionality, I think people are finding ways that they're using it they never would have thought of. I think I've read the similar article you read regarding the autistic children. I'm a big believer in seeing what things can do with education. And I think, honestly, I've even seen videos where you see extremely young children, toddler age, that's their iPad is their first exposure to magazines and newspapers. So if you put a conventional magazine or newspaper in front of them, they're looking at the pictures, touching on them, wanting something to happen. So I think you're going to see a whole generation coming up to where traditional publishing is going to take a back seat to what digital and electronic publishing can offer. So I think that's just another avenue that it probably will have a pretty large impact on.
Well, in industry-wise, do you work in specific industries? Do you have a broad range of customers? Tell me about that.
I have a somewhat of a broad range of customers. I would say one of the customers I'm working with today on specifically more of an iPad app is dealing with insurance business, but it's dealing with primarily getting involved with workflow and paper flow. It's basically replacing a lot of the paper documents and going to digital and being able to, automatically pass through a workflow process. Another one that we're working on is within the education world, and it deals with the dilemma of bullying, in which we're going to be putting together an app that is allowing people to monitor and do a lot of reporting that's now required by the federal government to track bullying incidences within schools. So that's very diversified, I guess.
Yeah, I would say, but that sounds like a fascinating app and one that could really take off.
Yeah, that's the one thing about the education market is it's starting to grasp the concepts of what you can do, not just with digital publishing, but some of the power that they're realizing that just the students are their market. And I think they're realizing that now they have to get up to speed and start allowing a lot of functionality and capabilities to the faculty and administration staff on mobile devices as well, because I think even if you're in a school, you still are somewhat of a mobile person going from class to class.
All right, in this paper flow that you're working on, it makes me think in your business, do you have people that you collaborate with? Are you doing this all on your own, outsourcing some? Are you in contact with a group through the cloud, or tell me a bit about that?
The way I put it together was I have a partner, and the partner comes from an industry background and was, very like-minded. I guess that was the way to start it. But I would say the best thing is that we probably pretty much spend most of our focus on designing, architecting it, and building the app, even though we both are able to develop it. Sometimes we develop pieces of it, and then sometimes we outsource. So it's probably a hybrid of what you talked about.
Mm-hmm. So I would imagine that all your work is basically virtual.
It's very, very virtual, and I think that that's, where the world is going, whether people like it or not. I'm not saying that we should lose personal contact, but unfortunately, the workplace has forced us to go virtual.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a soon-to-be former real estate broker who had a brick-and-mortar business up until 2007, I can very much appreciate and concur on the virtual workspace. So in a startup situation, I think especially people have to work virtually.
Yeah, to that point, I think if people were to really sit down and analyze how much time they really spent in the office, especially in your old profession of real estate. I mean, your job was not to be sitting in the office selling real estate. It was to be out and about making contacts and selling real estate. So the really amount of time that your feet were in that office were probably a lot less than when they were in the car or out and talking
That's
to
right,
clients.
and the rent goes 24/7.
Pretty much.
It never stops. The
That's true.
landlord doesn't rent by the hour. So tell me about communication. Do you communicate with partners and people through CRMs? Do you use apps for that?
I primarily want to use as much app as I can. I think today it's still a case of using a lot of, I use the term old school technology blended with some new. So I think it's depending upon the market and the type of people you're dealing with. But as much as possible, try to use some of the social aspects and the business social aspects that are out there from a CRM perspective.
How about marketing? Do you have social media marketing channels and procedures? Do you use social media a lot for marketing the business, or how do you find business coming your way?
I would say the primary benefit is using things like the Facebook, constantly putting stuff out on Twitter, trying to get more involved with Twitter since there are some new features coming out with regards to business, Twitter for business. I think you're going to see a lot more flexibility and capabilities that they're going to offer, and just as too as the market matures and people are finding that actually works and there's ways to do it, then I think that you're going to see that more prevalent. Sometimes it doesn't beat a good face-to-face meeting or having lunch with someone, but I think that as you're working with a more global market, obviously social media is going to have a bigger impact.
Sure, absolutely. And in that regard, do you find business coming to you from a wide geography, or has most of your actual customers been local?
It's from a large geography. We've had inquiries all the way from, believe it or not, London, England for one of our restaurant apps, and then we've also had stuff here like the insurance one working locally because it was through a personal friend. So I would say across the board.
Well, do you have any advice for people that might be out there thinking of starting a business for themselves, that might find themselves out of work, struggling, but with a lot of knowledge and thinking that they could start their own enterprise? What advice do you have for them?
I would say for people who are looking to start something, I would say one, go into it with your eyes open. That's the best way I can say it, because I think that you have to realize that you're not going to know all the answers and you're going to stumble and fall. And I think that you have to just pick yourself back up. There's a lot of resources out there that can help you from understanding what it is you can do. But I would say the best thing to do is find the strengths that you have, use those strengths to go after a market, but also understand your weaknesses, and then be able to find sources that can help you address those weaknesses and fill the gaps and make it a successful thing. It's certainly not something I think anyone can take on wholly by themselves, but I would say that there are a lot of avenues out there today, if you find them, that can fill gaps that meet skill sets you need.
Well, one of the big gaps, I'm sure these days with most of the folks in that situation is money, but there are a lot of free resources out there. Do you have any advice for startups with very thin budgets?
Yeah, I think when because honestly, when Backpocket Mobile started with very thin resources. Obviously, it was some money on my own, but at the same time, we were looking for an opportunity to where I ended up partnering with a person who wanted to build a mobile aspect of his own business. So I found a person that was willing to put some money and funding into it, work as a partner from that aspect, from a financial partner aspect, and then be able to drive that. So I think that there are people out there that, if you look, pretty hard and out there, that you can find people who say they want to support and promote other things outside their own industry, and they realize that typically, especially when you're jumping on some of this mobile aspect stuff, that they want to be a part of it. So when you find those leaders, those are the ones that I think you want to go after.
I've heard the word partner come up quite a bit. I think that's probably a good piece of advice, and one that's kind of helped you get to where you are.
Yes. You, like I said earlier, you certainly can't go this alone. If you can, more power to you. But I think having a partner, because if anything, having a partner, not even just financially, but having somebody to as a sounding board at times, being able to say, this is what we're thinking, am I in left field, or is this something that has, some traction to it, and let's move forward with it. So having someone to be that sounding board is very, very helpful, or has been certainly helpful to me.
And I guess times have never been better to find a partner, someone who has the time and energy, and it's not full-blown business of their own. It really helps, I guess, to work together.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. If you had a bat phone direct line to the White House and get 2 minutes of time with the president, what advice would you have to offer on how they might create some more jobs in the economy?
Unfortunately, there's not a black and white answer, and there's not an overnight solution. I think personally, and it's something that I've been reading a lot lately, I think a lot of the jobs displacements have not been as much to outsourcing as people think. I think it's been more to the advances in technology. And I think the sad thing is that if you look back towards education and just the workforce education in general, people in this country, I believe, are very, very behind technologically from other countries. And I think as much money can be spent on getting people up to speed, how do we deal with it, and be able to get, I think, America back to being innovative again and creating new things and new ideas. I think that in turn, in the long run, would certainly create more jobs for everyone. I think the problem is we still have this manufacturing mentality, and the robots have slowly taken that over, as well as just general computers and technology.
Right, and I think Seth Godin calls it a race to the bottom, and that's definitely a loser, which we need to stay away from.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up, because I'm a large follower of Seth Godin, and he brings up a lot of just, if common sense were a pill, I don't think people would have enough common sense to take it, because it's one of those things where he just brings up some things that you just think, wow, that's just inevitable, and people just don't see it.
Tell us a bit about how one finds you to get an app developed. Do you have a primary presence on the web, or how does that work?
Primarily, obviously going to BackPocketMobile.com is a certain way to reach us, and once you're going to that site, there's phone numbers and information about BackPocket Mobile. We have a pretty good presence on Facebook, which is BKPKT, and so doing a search on BackPocket Mobile usually renders pretty good search functionality there. So
BKPKT. Oh,
yep.
Okay. BackPocket Mobile, I guess that's where you back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Robert Moorehead, we want to thank you for being around, and wish your back pockets be filled to the brim as soon as possible. I think you're on the right track, and I will assume that you're beyond missing any mail, so congratulations on that, and thanks for participating and offering some advice here. This question I may edit back in or out later, but I have a friend who has a second grader. We went to visit yesterday, and the second grader has recently taken his mother's credit card from her wallet, gone in on the computer, Googled a game he wanted, ordered the game online, and it arrived at the house. It was the first inkling that Mom had that he had done anything like this. Now, this is a second grader. I'm thinking back when I was in the second grade, I was working on spelling my last name, with a big fat pencil. Do you think this is the kind of kid you'd like to hire for BackPocket Mobile? It sounds like he might have a
I would
good
say
future.
that would be the perfect kid I would like to hire for BackPocket Mobile.
Well, that's awesome. I think we're going to get him one of those prepaid Visa cards for Christmas, and just really irk his parents. But I just thought that was pure genius. I'm thrilled to see people with stories like that.
I would at least set him up with a PayPal account. I think he'd be good to go.
Absolute trouble. Okay, well, Robert, thank you so much for your time, and wish you continued success.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Bye bye.